Hey, what's up, guys? It's Adam and Shane from Rescue Michigan. And tonight, I think we're going to talk a little bit about the Michigan Republican Party, talk about party politics, talk about some current events, maybe some rumors, and kind of talk about in general just what our approach is as far as dealing with the party, being a member of the party, being an organizer with the party, and how it kind of all fits together. First, though, we did have a couple of quick announcements. First of all, if you saw our email today, there's going to be a very big day in Lansing this coming Tuesday. Although I have to issue one correction, unfortunately. In the email, I had said that, as I was under the impression, I think someone had told me that Michigan for Vaccine Choice was having a legislative day this Tuesday, which is when they get all their people to come and meet their lawmakers and address their issues and all that stuff. Apparently, that is actually the next Tuesday. But all the same, vaccine freedom, bodily autonomy is an important issue to us, and we still need you in Lansing anyway, because there's going to be at least one big thing this Tuesday, and that is at noon in the Military Veterans Affairs Committee. That's going to be on the third floor of the House office building. There is a hearing on legislation from Representative Riley to essentially to restore the First Amendment in Michigan and end the coming reign of terror. And I'll explain what I mean by that. This stems from a case involving a student at Lake Superior State University named Lucas Gerhard, who was an outspoken conservative, and he has been falsely charged with making a terrorist threat. And for that, he was held in jail for 83 days without bond. He has since been released to house arrest, which is extraordinarily expensive, extraordinarily limiting of freedom. He hasn't been able to go to school. He hasn't been able to go to work. He isn't able to use the internet or even a smartphone. So he's been under some form of custody for over 2 full years now. And the reason why I say this legislation is important for restoring the First Amendment is because the origin of that case was a joke he made about a lawfully owned, lawfully possessed AR-15 that he saved up all summer to purchase, and joked that it was going to make snowflakes melt. On that basis alone, a snowflake who hadn't even been a recipient of the message accused him of making a terrorist threat. And this is a case that should have been, it should have never been even brought. It should have been dismissed as a matter of law months and months and months ago, more than a year ago even. Insanely, the Michigan Court of Appeals has actually upheld his ongoing abuse, and even said that they created a new legal standard for speech, and said that unless it is impossible that you are guilty, a standard that has never existed anywhere in Michigan law before, and certainly not in federal law, then the case can go to trial where only a jury can decide whether or not something was a threat. That is insanely against all First Amendment jurisprudence. It's absolutely nuts. And Representative Riley has introduced a bill to clarify what constitutes a terror threat and bring attention to this issue. So that hearing is coming up this Tuesday in the House office building. Additionally, possibly, there may be a hearing at 10:30 in the morning on Tuesday on the 5th floor of the House office building, and that's a bill to effectively cartelize the marijuana industry in Michigan and create a permanent, lasting lobbying force for what you might call big weed, essentially large corporate interests that want to monopolize the industry, that want to have access to lawmakers, and that will shower them with cash to continue advancing their own personal interests. They had a hearing on this 2 weeks ago Tuesday. Session this past Tuesday was canceled because a representative had passed away. If they have that hearing to pass that legislation out, this is going to be an ongoing battle for the next more than a year till the session is over, potentially even beyond if it gets signed into law. If the hearing is never posted, that means that perhaps public outcry has destroyed the momentum that was building on this bill for a long time. But it's something to be aware of. If there is a hearing, we want people to be there. And again, either way, there will be a hearing on Lucas's bill at noon. So we really encourage people to come to the Capitol, or rather the House office building is where most of the representatives are. And by all means, even though Michigan Vaccine Choices Advocacy Day is a week from then, if you're in Lansing, obviously go to your lawmakers, talk to them. It's going to be an important thing. So we hope to see you all in Lansing this Tuesday possibly at 10:30. Get there early. And again, the big hearing is going to be at noon. So that's the first thing. Second thing, hey, Shane, how are you, buddy?
I'm doing pretty good. Just enjoying myself, enjoying the weekend,
Yeah.
and happy to be here with you. And I'm happy to expose a lot of the stupidity that's going on in the grassroots right now.
Right on. But first, I wanted to also say you've been getting around, man. We saw this on the Ron Paul Institute website, an interview with Daniel McAdams, who, if those of you that watch Ron Paul's Liberty Report know, he is his co-host. He was, I believe, his legislative director when he worked in Congress for many years. And he also, I guess, is running the Ron Paul Institute. So great guy. And you got to interview him. I think you've been doing more than one interview with him. Is that right?
Yeah, when I had my old Liberty Conservatives podcast, I had him on. I think he might have been my first interview or one of my first interviews there. And I interviewed him at least twice on that. And I was able to bring him on my new video podcast, the Big League Politics Live. I was able to have him on there. And, we talked about a lot of the issues that are very pressing, COVID and how that's being used to restrict our rights, how the people are rising up, and then, foreign policy and the attempted resurgence of neoconservatism after the disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan. So we really covered a lot of the critical topics that that are active within our politics now. And Daniel really liked the interview, so I think we'll be having more of them in the near future.
That's great, man. So yeah, if you guys want to check out more of Shane and see this great interview, this is right now. It's on the homepage of ronpaulinstitute.org. And I guess for your other Big League Politics podcast, they can watch that at bigleaguepolitics.com. Is that right?
Yep, it's up. We have some articles up at bigleaguepolitics.com. Linking to that, we generally host them on Rumble, which is we have Rescue Michigan Rumble channel as well. So, which is the probably the most viable YouTube competitor right now. So we have the Big League Politics podcast up on Rumble. So search for us there, Big League Politics on Rumble, and always check out bigleaguepolitics.com. We're reporting on all the most important issues of the day. So check us out.
Excellent. Yeah. Hey, we are going to be. I'm sure our days on YouTube are numbered. So we do have a Rumble channel. Maybe even our next video, we will try experimenting with live streaming on Rumble. I think they've only just recently enabled their live chat feature, but also, we're using software to render this video for YouTube. It's not a native YouTube thing. So I've got to figure out some way to actually stream to Rumble. So we'll get that going at some point. Hey, Peter Wells in the chat asks, are you a Trump fan? Sure am, buddy. Yeah, I think he's the best president we've had in my lifetime. Although Ron Paul would have been even better, but we didn't get that opportunity, unfortunately. I'm not going to say he's perfect. Certainly in hiring, he may have made a few mistakes, but as presidents go, Donald Trump was pretty dang great. All right, one more thing before we really get the show rolling. This came up. We saw apparently Craig Mauger is a fan of our show. That's probably actually not true. Craig Mauger, for those of you who don't know, is a reporter for the Detroit News, and he has been covering the story. Craig Mauger is a reporter who is not good at concealing his biases, his liberal bias. It used to be if you were a reporter for the Detroit News or a paper like that, you really wanted to go to great lengths to at least conceal your bias as best as you could. But with TDS and everything else, a lot of people just can't control themselves anymore. And apparently Detroit News is cool with that. They don't mind having a blatantly liberal reporter covering their Lansing beat, but whatever. Anyway, he covered our video breaking down the misinformation the Detroit News was actually spreading about the Monica Palmer thing. But funnily enough, he posted this. He posted, and he chose that thumbnail. So Shane, have you made that your profile photo on Facebook yet, or whatever social media you use?
Well, some of the so-called patriots in the grassroots were mass reporting my articles and my comments to get me temporarily suspended from Facebook. So literally, they were appealing to Zuckerberg to perform censorship on me. So right now, I can't change it to that, but I think I probably will when I get
Nice.
reinstated. And the interesting thing about Mauger is that before he signed on to the Detroit News, I actually he was actually with the Michigan Campaign Finance Network.
Yeah.
And he was a guy who I spoke with, at tea parties. We're on the same docket where we were having very similar, spreading very similar information about how there's corruption in government. So it's really interesting the turn that he's taken since he took the 30 pieces of silver and joined the mainstream media. But I have no problem with, me maybe slanted, a little bit there. But really, I have no problem with what he said there.
Maybe it was TDS. A lot of conservatives got smoked out from, or at least caught that illness.
Yeah, that's very possible. You never know, but I really have no problem with what he reported. The idea that the board of canvassers is some hollowed institution that is above partisanship. Total nonsense. Republicans need to fight. They need to fight back against Democrat corruption. Democrats have no scruples. They have no morals. They will abuse power at every level, and we need Republicans in there with steel backbones who will push back and who will fight against this corruption. So I really have no problem with his reporting. I think everyone I've shown that picture to has really enjoyed it, and so I might send a gift basket to Mr. Mauger.
Yeah, he's promoting our channel.
For promoting our podcast and our information, and so I might send a gift basket to my old friend Craig.
Right on, man. Yeah, I mean, you can tell the narrative they're trying to spin is that there's a purge going on within the GOP, a purge of these principled conservatives that vote to certify the election for Joe Biden in the face of a majority of precincts in the county that she's canvassing being out of balance and therefore unable to be verified and unable to be recounted. Hey,
I'm proud. Look, I'm proud to lead the purge of the GOP of Jeff Timmer conservatives. They can go.
Oh boy.
They can go join the Democrats. Their grift money is dried up in the Republican Party. We're an America First party now, and we're moving forward without the people who got us into this horrible situation where all of our freedoms are being destroyed. They're out, we're in, and people are just going to have to deal with it.
Yeah. Well, anyway, on that note, I guess you've been making some enemies, man. I think I guess that comes with the territory of being a district chair, but this post came out the other day from a fella. Let me just make the frame better here. Here we go. CJ Richard. Now, I only heard of this guy from one other thing, but let's just read through this post here. Breaking news. This is September 25th, so this is like about 3 weeks ago. I gave you an early morning note yesterday. This is just to Facebook. You can see 50 shares, 87 comments. So this is getting around. I gave you an early morning note yesterday on the events at the conference. They're talking about the Mackinac conference. That was the week before this. But here is a late night disturbing story from Wayne County where we need your attention. Today, while the MIGOP ran their party on the island and people were distracted along with Arizona audit results, we learn of the MIGOP's sneaky late Friday afternoon surprise. Now you were on the island on Friday afternoon, as I recall, right? That's when I got there.
Yeah, I was up there, and we were doing the Gates thing. It went really well. The grassroots really enjoyed it, and people like CJ and others were trying to organize a boycott of the island so that no one would show up, thinking that would do anything. And whereas we tried to have a showing for the grassroots on the island and bring one of our champions up. So
organize a boycott. That's like organizing a boycott of the. That's like not going.
Yeah, like not going, and that's gonna show them, and and you didn't even have to pay the MIGOP to come to the Matt Gaetz party. It was Christina Caramo, where we celebrated her grassroots Secretary of State run. So you didn't even have to buy a ticket, but not showing up and retreating, supposedly was really going to show him, but instead we had a great positive event on the island that people loved, and really I think was one of the major highlights of the entire conference. And
Yeah.
I think CJ might have been a little butthurt about the success of that event, so he made this post.
Yeah, I mean, generally speaking, I find the Mackinac Conference fairly tedious, and the main reason why I would go in the first place was, like, back in the day, we were Ron Paul supporters, and the presidential straw poll was an important event there. And the reason why people would come to the island was mostly just to show support for their candidates, and all the candidates for, Senate office and statewide offices. They'd bring up their volunteers there to demonstrate how much support they have. It's mostly it's like an open campaign event that's held in a fun location at the end of the summer, and that's pretty much all there is to it. So, and if you don't have a horse in the race, maybe you just don't go. I mean, I've skipped the Mackinac Conference many times because I had no interest in in coming up there. But anyway,
this is my first Mackinac Conference since 2015. Where basically I went and tried to rally people to support Rand Paul for president. In 2015.
Me too.
You don't have to go every year, but it's generally a fun event and more for the parties and the networking and kicking it with a lot of the better activists in the state, more so than the actual nuts and bolts of the conference itself at the Grand Hotel.
Yeah. Anyway, so let's get to this sneaky late Friday afternoon surprise. It was reported that Sean Trujillo, is that the bass player for Metallica? Or is that you?
That may be my super secret alias that they make up conspiracy theories because that's my name on Facebook. So that's my
that's your name on Facebook?
Alias.
Oh, okay. So he's not. Yeah, okay. Fair enough. All right, Sean. And Bill Rowerdink, I don't think that's spelled right, but whatever.
Yeah, spelled horribly wrong, but go on.
Participated along with the MIGOP, and their actions were despicable and reminiscent of the mafia-type tactics, or as I like to say, MMT.
That's the Matic Mafia team or something like that.
I thought MMT was short for mafia-type tactics.
No, it's like the Maddock Mafia thing.
The Maddock Mafia, oh man. By an illegal move, the committee did not nominate the current chair of the Board of Canvassers for Wayne County. How's that illegal, do you know?
Well, I mean, according to the law itself, it is very legal, as we discussed at length during the last
you're right. We did
it.
We covered all this last time. That's true. Yeah. You don't have a right to be renominated as long as you want to be. That's just complete gibberish. Anyway, so they didn't even have her on the list. They don't have to. And Sean Trujillo and Bill Rowerdink are not even members of it. Doesn't matter. We covered this last time. As if it weren't bad enough, we find the GOP with Paul Cordes was working behind the scenes, similar to what the MIGOP did in Muskegon County when they were. Is any of this verified anywhere? And also, why do I care?
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure the situation with Zach Lowring, so I don't want to comment with regards to that. But it's all speculation, it's all hearsay, it's all rumors, and
they even
probably just completely made up by this guy.
Yeah, he says they even joined on a lawsuit with the Democrats. Yes, with the Democrats. What do you even know what he's talking about?
No, I mean it's all gibberish. It's all made up. It's all fantasy in this guy's brain.
They may even have had a hand in getting me thrown off the board of canvassers in Oceana County. What kind of leadership do we have at the MIGOP? None, and I think President Trump told us exactly that. They're all corrupt. He is being told of this mess. Didn't this guy go on a tear the other day against Steve? Hasn't he been on an ongoing tear against Steve Carra, the guy that Trump just endorsed for Congress?
Yeah, Trump. Yeah, he hates Steve Carra. Thinks Steve Carra is a rhino. Tears him down because he introduced a forensic audit bill and is pushing for a forensic audit because Jovan Pulitzer says it's not good enough or something. It's just maddeningly illogical.
Yeah. I mean, let's get through this and then let's take a closer look at this guy. They're all corrupt. Trump is being informed. And, you know, it boggles my mind because, number one, Fred Upton's the incumbent. Steve Carr is the Trump-endorsed challenger. What effect is attacking Carr going to have other than to support Fred Upton?
Well, I think CJ supports John Rocha for Congress in the 3rd District. And you know, I like John. I met him on the island. He was there. I think he was at the Matt Gaetz party.
He wasn't boycotting?
Seems like a great guy. Was that?
He wasn't boycotting?
No, he wasn't boycotting. And as far as I know, he doesn't support any of this kind of stuff. So, you know, I mean, it seems like it's two well-intentioned grassroots guys going up against Upton. But, you know, it becomes, because of people like this, it becomes something that just tears the grassroots apart because of, you know, guys like this desperately need attention and have a soapbox on social media. And a lot of desperate people will get tuned into this because, you know, they're not thinking clearly.
Yeah. Anyway, this goes on for a little bit, but it's all just nonsense, and there's not much else to even go through here. There's not really more facts here. But hey, wait, no, that's not it. I just made the screen too big. Let's look at this is this guy, CJ Richard. He's being interviewed with this Logic, who's a friend of the show. He's been on our show. I saw him fairly recently at the Secretary of State hearing on the election integrity bills. And I think they both live near each other. They're both on like the Oceana County area or somewhere kind of close to it. You can see they're clearly in studio together. They're not doing the Zoom call like we are. But you know, Logic's the host of the show, and I think he's just letting the guy talk. But let's hear what this guy has to say here. So here we go. This is from August 23rd, so it's been a couple of months. But let's hear the man.
And the truth in black and white, and that's really what we're about. And I think we're bringing that to you today, as we will be many days in the future, if not every day. That's our goal, and nothing but the truth. So get ready. Today we're going to start out talking about the MIGOP, and some of you have asked me why am I so adamant against this MIGOP. So let's just start out discussing where it all began. Remember when Michon started out running with Ron Weiser? The idea was that Michon was going to be able to run the organization. Ron was just going to go by the wayside. Except,
do you remember ever hearing anything like that?
Not to that specification.
No.
I know that the idea was that Michonne be a much more hands-on co-chair than co-chairs in the past, which I think she has been to a certain extent.
Sure.
But I don't think it was ever said that Ron Weiser would not be involved at all. So
no,
I think that is, at the very least, a misrepresentation of what was said going into it.
Yeah, and well, we'll talk more about the nature of the party chair in a moment, but let's just let this play for a moment here.
A funny thing happened on the way to the forum. What happened? Laura Cox came out with a story about the bribe. And, of course, all the people said, oh, there's no bribe. It was about delegate recruitment. Well, we all knew it was a bribe. Why? Because I had a report about a year before that. It was not released yet. It was not complete. I knew about the bribe. I shouldn't say I had a report. I had the idea that was going on. But anyway, all
right, let's stop there, because that's a pretty big lie just to kick off an interview with. And let's examine the facts here. This is the document that tells the entire story from start to finish of the so-called bribe. So, this email, or it's a letter, but it's sent by email, dated February 4th. This was just days before Ron Weiser became the chair of the state party. Now, let's back up a little bit and talk about the history of what happened here. Laura Cox was elected chair of the Michigan GOP in 2018. She had just lost her race for state senate. The House seat that she represented for 6 years just got flipped, got taken over by the Democrats. The congressional district that includes her hometown was also taken by the Democrats. So somehow losing the Senate race, the House seat, and the congressional seat qualified her to be the chair of the Republican Party. And in 2 years, she spent all of their money, left them $500,000 in debt, and we got totally clobbered in 2020. So
yeah, keep in mind that Laura Cox was the MIGOP chair who was in charge as the disaster at TCF happened.
Right. Yep. That's it.
As the party was caught with their pants down, she was in charge. And I don't even think she was on the floor or anywhere near TCF as it was going down.
The state party had no plans, preparation, or anything for what happened in November 2020. And to whatever extent the RNC might have had that responsibility, keep in mind, that's actually the reason why Laura Cox was chair, was that she and Ronna Romney are good friends. They come from the same area. Ronna's from Northville. Laura Cox was Livonia. Anyway, so strangely enough, after getting clobbered in 2020, Ron Weiser runs for state chair, and for some strange reason, Ron Weiser is winning the race for state chair hands down, and Laura Cox's re-election prospects are not looking good. So about, would you say about 2 or 3 weeks before the convention is scheduled, where the state delegates are going to elect who the next state chair is, Laura Cox announces she is not going to seek re-election, and she's going to hand the baton back over to Ron Weiser. Weiser has been the chair in the past. In fact, the state party headquarters building is named for him because he has given the party tons and tons and tons and tons of money over the years. In fact, at one point, he was the finance chair for the Republican National Committee. And then, about a week before the convention, Laura Cox announces this allegation and says that this terrible crime has occurred regarding Ron Weiser, and she says, I'm not going to run, but you can still vote for me because I'm still on the ballot, and you can vote for me in protest. So now this letter was sent on February 4th, just days before Ron Weiser is going to become the next party chair. And it's addressed to Jocelyn Benson's deputy, Jonathan Brader, director of the Bureau of Elections at the State Department, regarding Michigan Republican Party self-report of possible campaign finance violation. Dear Mr. Brader, on behalf of the Michigan Republican Party, this submission outlines the circumstances with respect to a possible violation of the Michigan Campaign Finance Act, where certain payments related to the 2018 election cycle were made from the Michigan Republican Party administrative account that could constitute expenditures as defined in the Michigan Campaign Finance Act. If the Secretary of State determines that these payments from the account are expenditures as defined in the Michigan Campaign Finance Act, then NPR, the Republican Party seeks to enter into a conciliation agreement with the Secretary of State pursuant to the Michigan Campaign Finance Act. And this goes on, yada, yada, yada. As this sua sponte submission demonstrates, the Michigan Republican Party is bringing this potential issue to your attention. Moreover, this review identified no systemic issues that would otherwise result in significant errors of this type, and the impact of any possible violation was limited in scope, i.e., I am just submitting this allegation to you, Jocelyn Benson, against my successor, Ron Weiser. So, 5 days later, now Ron Weiser is the chair of the Michigan Republican Party, and the Secretary of State, run by Jocelyn Benson, sends this letter. And we appreciate this voluntary disclosure and blah, blah, blah. We need to understand, though, because your letter left out all these important details. It omitted documentation regarding the purposes, dates, amounts, and sources of these alleged payments from the party to Stan Grote, information of which is necessary to enable the Bureau to determine whether there was any reason to believe a violation occurred. So, you know, your party just told us you've been breaking these laws potentially, but you didn't give us enough information to determine that. So, meanwhile, around the same time that this happens, same day, we get the party lawyer, Charles Spies, I assume a new lawyer for the party, sends this letter acknowledging this. I did not learn of your letter until later. I'm asking for an extension because and he's basically saying, I just got into this office. Your letter was sent minutes before mine was emailed to them on the same date. I didn't learn, so I just want to say, wait. This is from the Bureau of Elections. Okay, the timing on these is screwy. So here's what happened. This is from the Secretary of State, February 9th. This is also from the Secretary of State, February 9th. This is sent from the Republican Party's attorney on February 9th. And so this is what the GOP sends to Jocelyn Benson. I write to you here on behalf of the Michigan Republican Party. It is our understanding that a disgruntled former employee and failed chair candidate Laura Cox wrote to you on February 4th with information purported to be about something that is possible that could have violated the Michigan Campaign Finance Act. Ms. Cox's she's still married to Mike Cox, yeah? All right, whatever. Ms. Cox's submission with fantastical possible could concerns was not authorized by the Republican Party. The MRP now clarifies that we believe the MRP has complied with the Michigan Campaign Finance Act, and Ms. Cox's submission is withdrawn. If there is not a mechanism to withdraw, then at a minimum it should be treated from Ms. Cox personally and not the MRP. While we hope the complaint will be promptly dismissed as simply hypothesizing worst-case scenarios which are outside your office's jurisdiction, we understand that partisan Democrats are putting tremendous pressure on Benson to pursue Republicans. Now, this is a polite way. They know full well that Benson herself doesn't need any pressure whatsoever, but we understand Mrs. Benson is under a lot of pressure to persecute Republicans. Let's see. There's a question here from Judgy Judgerton. Want to rescue Michigan? Start with the bottom half financially. Yeah. Anyway, let's move on. While we hope the complaint will be promptly... Oh, yeah, I just read that. So what ended up happening is they sent these two letters to each other at the same time. So now the elections person says, we just got your email just as I was sending mine, yada, yada, yada. So we need to get a written report. We need more information. So now the Secretary of State's saying, we're going to go after you guys, is what they're saying.
This reminds me of the Cox plea here. Reminds me a lot of what was done, the exact same blueprint that was done with the McBroom report, where the Rhino Republicans were begging the Democrats to investigate their political opponents within the Republican Party.
It does sound kind of familiar.
The uniparty blueprint.
Yeah. Anyway, so now we have this letter from the state party going back to Secretary of State. On behalf of the Republican Party, this correspondence is in response to your letter asking for certain information. As a threshold matter, we note that the politicized concerns raised by Ms. Cox were due to her inability to review the Republican Party's contract with Mr. Grote. Oh, so she didn't know. She's just guessing. We have now reviewed the contract and believe it to be legally compliant with services lawfully paid for by the account. Consequently, we believe the MCFA is not implicated, and review of this issue is outside of your office's jurisdiction. In your February 9th letter, you note Ms. Cox's request was purely speculative with no evidence or documentation. It was irresponsible for her to reach out to your office without having reviewed MRP's internal documentation, and we apologize to you on her behalf for Ms. Cox not having conducted necessary due diligence before involving your office. If she had done so, your office's time and resources would not be wasted reviewing her request. And they include these attachments. So let's see what we have here. Attachments. The memorandum of agreement between the party and Stan Grote. Signed by Stan Grote, Ron Weiser, Colleen Perro. Memorandum of agreement. Signed by Stan Grote, Ron Weiser, Colleen Perro. Confidentiality agreement. Vendor agreement. Now, here's an interesting question. Who do you think wrote these documents? Would you guess maybe an attorney? Because here's the funny thing. Illegal contracts are not enforceable. If you're breaking the law, you don't put it in writing. You don't have a contract. These are written by counsel, signed off by people who are in, oh, here we go. General counsel of the Michigan Republican Party signs the letter for them. Do you think the attorney for the GOP would sign an agreement that they believe is illegal? So what actually happened was Laura Cox is mad she lost and decides to burn down the GOP on her way out the door. So she files a complaint with the Secretary of State. And what happens next? As you might predict, Jocelyn Benson writes the party. And what does she say? Actually, the way we see it, it sounds like you did break the law. We're going to go after you. And that's what all this stuff says. So now we're May 17. GOP writes back. Dear Ms. Mallerman, on behalf of the Michigan Republican Party, this correspondence is in response to your letter, which states various factual and legal theories hypothesized by your office hereinafter the Secretary, and requests confidential MRP administrative account donor information. Disclosing donors. I wonder why the SOS would want to have donors disclosed. I wonder what the left would do with that information.
Their enemies list.
Yeah. While the Michigan Republican Party is disappointed by the Secretary's factually incorrect and legally incoherent attempt to assert jurisdiction here and obtain access to confidential donor information, MRP nonetheless remains willing to work with you to informally resolve this matter. Our reply, as well as its willingness to work with the Secretary towards informal resolution for the sake of avoiding the cost and burden of litigation, should not be considered a concession that the MCFA exempt activities at issue here fall within the scope of the MCFA and or the jurisdiction of your office. And then they go on to explain. Grote's contract had standard provisions dictated by the party rules. The Grote contract is neither an expenditure nor a contribution and certainly can't be both. I'm not going to read this whole thing word for word, but if you want, pause the video. You can read the whole thing. The MRP administrative account is outside the jurisdiction of your office, and no activities have been undertaken, including the contract, which would bring it within your regulatory jurisdiction. Donors to that account were promised confidentiality and face the risk of retaliation and harassment if disclosed to your office. Exactly. Conclusion, you, the SOS, are a bunch of morons. We know exactly what you're doing, and we're not going to comply. And finally, conciliation agreement. And it says the respondent, the GOP, has agreed to pay a conciliation payment to the amount of $200,000 to the state of Michigan. They agree that this is without admitting any issue of law or fact. They voluntarily enter and assure the Secretary of State has internal controls to comply, blah, blah, blah. This is a standard legal settlement. What this means is we'd rather pay you $200,000 than pay our lawyers $500,000 to take this to court and fight this. We don't want the uncertainty. We don't want the time. We don't want the bad press. We will give you $200,000 to bury this and go away. So thanks to Laura Cox burning down the house on her way out, Michigan Republican donors, and probably Ron Weiser himself, had to give the Secretary of State $200,000 to clean up the mess that Laura Cox intentionally made as a ridiculous stunt because she was mad that she lost. That's where
and one thing I want to mention is that I don't want to defend whatever happened between Weiser and Grote.
Yeah.
But at the same time, Laura Cox was aware of this for years beforehand. Didn't say a thing, and actually made Stan Grote the head of the budget committee for state party while she knew of this. So it's complete sour grapes. In my opinion, it was done by Laura Cox because after the January 6th fiasco, there was a lot of pressure for Ron Weiser to dump Michonne as co-chair because she was getting heat. He was getting blamed because she was involved, I believe, on January 5th as part of a rally against election fraud in the Capitol. There was a lot of
not in pressure. The U.S. Capitol, but she was
around. Yeah, she was involved in a January 5th rally. At the Capitol, I should say, where she was, talking about the need to fight against election fraud, and then of course the media seized upon that and tried to blame her for an insurrection or whatever. And there was a lot of institutional pressure to dump Maddock as co-chair. That did not happen. So then this campaign came into play to sabotage the party, sabotage the rising of America First forces within the GOP.
Yeah,
and it was completely ridiculous. And Cox knew about this, what had happened between Weiser and Grote for years. She did not care. She made Grote the head of the budget committee, and then came back with this last-minute campaign to burn down the MIGOP and sow the seeds of discord. And a lot of people who have no experience in the party, no experience in politics, have no clue what's going on, cannot have no understanding of the nuance of what
Well,
is happening.
let's get back to CJ in a moment here, because he's got some interesting comments to make in a moment.
Okay.
Oh, Jeremy says question answered. Okay, I was going to say, 2 points to that. I've known Michonne Maddox since long before Michigan Trump Republicans were a thing. In fact, I remember watching the first 2016 presidential debate with her when nobody knew what kind of candidate Trump was going to be. And I remember after that first debate, during the first debate, her saying, "Oh my gosh, he's so funny." Michonne Maddox has been a Trump supporter since the very, very beginning. And her and Marion Sheridan and Roseanne Ponkowski did extraordinary amounts of hard work to get Trump over the finish line when everybody in the institutional Republican Party was doing everything possible to sabotage him. Marion Sheridan led the effort to prevent election fraud in November 2020. She ran the entire Guard the Vote operation. Michonne Maddox, she got to meet President Trump because she ran Women for Trump, and the Trump campaign widely perceived that she was the most responsible person for helping get Trump over the finish line in Michigan. But anyway,
and also I want to mention that Marion and the MCC, they're the ones who put out the APB when the recount was happening in 2016. They needed an army overnight at TCF. They led that in 2016 and stopped the potential steal by the Democrats in 2016, and that's been largely forgotten about in all the hoopla that happened in 2020. So they've been involved since day one. And they've just worked so hard and so tirelessly and often for no money on behalf of Trump and on behalf of the America First cause.
Oh, they're not making money working at the party. You guys don't get paid for these jobs. I don't know why you are the 11th district chairman. I'll tell you the truth, it seems like a pain in the ass to me. But anyway, all right, let's let this guy ramble on for a minute and get to the next falsehood he says, because I made a list and there's quite a few.
It took a while to get it done. And what Laura brought out, of course, was exactly that, the $200,000 bribe. I want to return to that topic, too, because there's still the question, well, was it a bribe or not? Legally, no. It was not adjudicated. They settled out of court. As I pointed out, lawyers don't write and sign contracts that are going to be illegal, and they don't send them off to the Secretary of State. Here is it all done by the book. And as to the point of, well, was it somehow a legal way to get him out of the race? Yeah, fine. Now, keep in mind where things were in 2018. The Democrats had 3 female candidates. The Republicans had, or would have had if Grote was the nominee, 3 male candidates. We know the Democrats are going to play that card intensely. Grote's kind of a goofy guy, too. And Mary Trader Lang, who, obviously she didn't win, but she was Ruth Johnson's pick. The party didn't want to have a controversial, divisive race, and if Ron Weiser says, "Hey, man, it'd really be best for all of us if he got out of the race," and he had to help him do that, I don't have a problem with that, frankly. That's just my 2 cents. But
and look, I can understand how such a payment people think that the delegates should decide. It shouldn't be decided by big money and payoffs and whatever.
Well, right, but the delegates don't get to decide before the candidates decide. If you drop, I'll give you a perfect example. In 2010, there was a convention when they nominated the lieutenant governor, and Rick Snyder had won the primary, but the lieutenant governor is supposed to be decided at the convention, and everyone in the grassroots hated Brian Calley, who was Rick Snyder's pick, and they picked some other guy who was some kind of state lawmaker. I forget the guy's name. They wanted him to be the lieutenant governor. And at the convention, when they had a quote-unquote voice vote for the candidates for lieutenant governor, the crowd roared for the other guy and booed Brian Calley. It was obvious that the other guy got more votes. And there was panic over at the dais because they weren't prepared for that. And they didn't know what to do. So they all retreated to a back room for a while. And after about 20 minutes, the other guy, the guy that was running against Brian Calley, came out and conceded. And I don't know what he was offered. Whatever it was, he probably never got it. But he dropped out. And what are you going to do? Can't beat something with nothing. So if a candidate drops out of a race, that's on them. Now, I would say maybe the candidate's donors might call him to task, because if they gave him their hard-earned money it was not to drop out of the race. So they might take that up with them.
It's just the point that there's this money power that is papering over the party and with strings attached and making the decisions behind closed doors. That's the problem, and I can understand the concerns with that. But at the same time, you have to understand the nuance of the situation and the idea of lionizing someone as awful as Laura Cox.
Yeah,
because she came out with these allegations she knew about for years in a politically motivated ploy to sabotage, the rise of America First forces in the MIGOP. That's despicable.
Yeah, I mean, even in the worst case, even if it was unethical, it was a 2-year-old story that Laura Cox dredged up just to damage the party, and it did. It did. I mean, if you are even running for chair, and I mean, the notion of destroying the party if you lose your race, to me is unconscionable. It's destroying everything that you claimed you supported. And someone that honestly, authentically cares about the GOP would never do such a thing, period. Lose with some dignity. Anyway, all right, let's let this guy go on.
At that point, in a meeting, after I started on this road about exposing it, I was challenged by the vice chair of administration, Diane Schindelbeck, to tell me that wasn't true, that the bribe wasn't true, and that I knew about it, that I knew it wasn't true, that they'd sent me stuff. First of all, they never sent anything. Second of all, it was true, and it still is true today.
Nope.
The Bureau of Elections went after Mr. Weiser and fined him $200,000. The largest fine.
That's a lie. That was an out-of-court settlement. That is not a fine. He's lying about the outcome.
In the state of
I don't
Michigan,
even know, but look, I don't even
okay.
pause it. I don't even know if he's lying. I don't think he even understands the difference between, a settlement and a fine. I mean, he just doesn't really know anything.
Yeah, that's probably true.
Hey, hold on.
Yep.
Okay. So, like I say, I'm new to a lot of this stuff. You jumping right in, and who is Michonne, and tell me a little bit more about her, so I know I don't know much about her.
Very good, Logic. You leave it to you to bring logic to it, and I will bring reason. So I'm bringing
What a
the reason.
panderer.
So you got the logic. Yes. So the reason is this: Michonne has got a past history, and there's no doubt about it across this state. She worked for the Trump organization. Did she? She worked for.
No, she volunteered, and not for the Trump organization, for Michigan Trump Republicans and Women for Trump.
Herself as an opportunist, and I think we can show that. Did she work? Yeah, but the question is, who was a benefactor? Anyways, that aside,
Trump.
The fact is,
Trump, and the fact that we won Michigan. That's what it ended up with.
Yeah, the benefactor was the American people.
All of us who wanted to see Hillary beaten and a resurgence of America. That's the benefactor.
Yeah, actually, he's got us using his bad grammar. Beneficiary. Michonne was the benefactor. She's the one that put in the work.
They haven't, but we can talk about about money from the Michigan Trump Republicans, where that went, etc. I won't even get into that part today. It's too detailed. But Michonne has this habit of bullying people, and I will give an example.
Who is she?
Michonne is the co-chair of the MIGOP.
Okay.
And I will explain a little bit more as we go along. So Michonne is the co-chair of the MIGOP, and since she had told everyone that if they elect her, she would run the organization and run.
I have no knowledge that that's remotely true. But if they elected her co-chair, she would run the organization. That's not even something that would be smart thing to say. Oh, well,
would let her do that.
I mean, from what I remember is that she would be a much more active and engaged and than typical co-chairs in the past.
Yeah,
and that this was more of a coalition ticket than in the past, where the co-chair basically didn't do anything. So I think
it was actually Ron Weiser was going to actually deal in the grassroots. He was going to actually put Michonne in a position, and we didn't know prior to the convention if Marion Sheridan was going to win or Diane Schindelbeck, and them both too. They've been working their tails off for the Trump organization, and before that the Tea Party movement. These are the grassroots conservatives. They've been involved in this for like 10 plus years now. And
obviously and obviously Trump thinks so because he's meeting with Michonne, he's talking with Michonne,
Yeah.
and so it's the stuff this guy's saying is so ridiculous.
Yeah.
That hasn't occurred. So what happened shortly after they got elected? Probably in a day or two, Jason Rowe was selected as the executive director. Michonne actually endorsed him. He was a never Trumper and a self-proclaimed never Trumper in press and several other areas. But also he was what do you call it? Can't think of the name of it now. But a national popular vote, NPV person, and he.
Yeah, that's why he was fired. And I should point out, when he says Michonne endorsed him, Michonne doesn't have to endorse anybody. Ron Weiser was the one who hired him. And, he might be never Trumper, but I don't know what what Ron Weiser's calculation was. Maybe he thought the guy was a professional and would follow orders. And maybe he thought the guy could subordinate his personal politics to carry out the tasks he was being given. And what's Michonne supposed to do? Ron's the chairman. Ron's the money source for the party in huge ways. He's raised and donated more than just about anybody else has to the party. What's she gonna do? Second guess him? Embarrass him?
Another thing is a lot of the animus toward Roe was because of a series of anonymous emails that were sent out to the delegates, gassing them up on this hired gun, this political operative. And of course, they took the bait and, they got rid of Roe. Oh, yeah, that's going to fix the entire party. No, nothing changed. It didn't matter. They, when they could have been pressuring people like Nick Broom or Shirky or Wentworth or people who had actual power, they were devoting their time to this hired gun. And, ultimately, all their anger and anguish, didn't got rid of Roe, maybe, but it didn't really accomplish much of anything. Because that guy was just a hired gun, and the people who actually had power and have power were it diverted anger that should have been directed toward them, toward this operative.
Yeah. Roe made some inexcusable remarks, but you're exactly right though. If you're going to try to change public policy, the politicians are the ones we should be targeting, not staff of the party. I want to talk more about that in a little bit, but I also want to play at least a little bit more of this video. There's no way we're going to have time to go through this whole thing from start to finish. But there is some stuff that I hope he's going to get to pretty soon, but let's see.
He was a big spokesman for them along with a couple other people. And so the NPV, for those who don't know what that is National Popular Vote. They want to do away with Electoral College. Well, you know what that will do. If we ever do away with that, then we're all screwed because the big cities will roll and we get nothing. It's already happening a little bit, but fortunately we have the NPV or have the Electoral College. Anyways, they're a supporter of Jason Rowe and Michonne actually support him. I actually have the emails that show she supported him. So they want to say they didn't, but hey, your past is your past. It's there. It's recorded. So Michonne tries to tell you one thing and do another, and we're quite honestly, we've seen this on politicians, and which she is. She's an opportunist, and her whole goal was to another higher office, like many of the politicians today.
Now,
So,
did you say she?
No evidence.
she's married to a current state rep, Matt Maddox, or Mad Dog, or Lapdog, as I like to call him. He is running for Speaker of the House. Now we know that he doesn't have those votes, but he's trying some things on the outside for any newcomers to get him to come to his side.
Yeah, by the way, the front runner candidate for Speaker of the House is Matt Hall, who is a total prostitute, versus Matt Maddock, who's actually voting right most of the time. Almost all the time.
And how dare he try to, and look, how dare he try to get new people involved in Lansing politics? I mean,
yeah, how dare a conservative want to be in leadership? Yeah, I'll have more to say about Matt Hall another day, but yeah, let's see where this is going. And I'm not sure how much more we have to listen to. Well, I'll give it a little more time, and then if we don't get to it, I'll let you know. I'll put a timestamp in the description when I can find it. Hold
Any
on.
way, shape, or form.
Okay.
So
Somebody wanted me to ask.
Let me scoot ahead.
These guys did nothing. They
had to
yeah.
vote on it.
Yeah.
The Republican legislators would have had.
I don't know what his can do now because that Republican committee, he basically told them that there is no fraud. He told some friends there's no fraud.
Oh wait, okay. What's this?
Oakland Republican committee. He true.
I gotta figure who he's talking about
He claims
now.
he's for forensic audit or forensic evaluation, which isn't true because after the over at the North Oakland Republican
He must be talking about Matt Maddock.
he basically told them that there is no fraud. He told some friends.
I think he's
there's
talking
no
about
fraud.
Rose still.
Wait a minute.
Oh,
so this is what
okay.
these guys say. They tell us there's no fraud.
Oh, so yeah, this is all irrelevant. Let's move ahead.
I can tell you, or Michael, and it just keeps adding up and adding up and adding up. That they abuse you. Once your usefulness is gone, you're gone. Now there are others that are just like it, or what I call her sisters. Or there's Diane Schindelbeck or Marion Sheridan or Michon. They're all alike. And again, when we talk about grassroots, what is really what grassroots about?
Yeah, Marion Sheridan and Roseanne Ponkowski and Michigan Conservative Coalition picked out an email in April 2020 calling for lawmakers that didn't show up to vote after they were in hiding for the past 3 weeks while the governor's lockdowns had just gone into effect to primary those that didn't show up, whether they were Democrats or Republicans. MCC put that email out. That's what rhinos they are. Tell people.
I can tell you that I was, I was involved personally notarizing affidavits. That we handled thousands and thousands of affidavits to the legislature.
Yeah,
I was doing it out. We were all doing it out of the MCC office in Walled Lake. That was, largely an effort that was organized by the MCC.
it was organized by them. Yeah.
What?
Well, yeah. What's this guy ever done?
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, I mean that was supported by DePerno, by Colbeck, by all the people who are respected by the grassroots as vote fraud whistleblowers and opponents.
Yeah.
So, and the MCC was, we were in that office for days, just bringing in people, notarizing affidavits, thousands of affidavits, organizing them, going up to the Capitol, delivering them to lawmakers. I was part of that. And, the MCC facilitated that to be such a big display. And of course, our corrupt lawmakers spit in our faces afterwards. But nevertheless, they were involved in that fight. They were devoting their resources to promoting that drive. And, as far as I can tell, who's done more than Marion Sheridan and the MCC to fight back against voter fraud. Not many people, maybe a handful in the entire state, but not many people.
No one did more than Marion. All right, let's let it play a little bit longer. Hopefully we'll get to this spot soon.
Grassroots is about caring about we, not me. We, the people. We, this. We, that. Not me. Every time because that really reflects what her purpose is. God about our fellow
God
man,
pandering now,
and not about ourselves.
Blah,
I think
blah,
next
blah,
job
blah,
she
blah.
wants to be run. These people look at it as a stepping stone. Not again, this corrupting it as a statement and tactical plan for her.
Oh, here we go.
Cox came out with that.
Hold on, back up a
The
little.
Michigan is corrupt, and I got to tell you, I've never seen this corrupt. I've been involved since 1984 in politics. I have never seen it as corrupt as it is today. When Laura Cox came out with that whole statement, not that I like Laura Cox all that much, but I was prepared to help build a strategic and tactical plan for her and work.
Oh, wait. He says he didn't like her all that much, but I was helping to build a strategic and tactical plan for her.
And yeah, and this guy was just saying that, it's about we. It's about we. It's not about me, but I was trying to glom on to Laura Cox.
I didn't like her very much, but I was helping her plan. I was helping her strategize. Let's see where this goes.
Alongside, because I felt that Ron Weiser in his past, what he's done to the party and bribery, is not what we want.
Which we've
And by the way,
established is
there's
false.
not just one bribe, there's more bribes. And there's an $81,000 some odd bribe, and they go, oh, it's not a bribe. Yeah, it is. It's a bribe.
Who?
Okay, wait. Bribe. You say it's been proven, it's public knowledge that
The bribe is just like with the one to Stangrot. They paid
To whom?
the fine on that one. This one has not been revealed all that much, although people know about it because the
Hasn't
very
been revealed.
person who did it was bragging about it when they
Why doesn't he tell us who it is then? That'd be interesting. Wouldn't it be interesting? I'd want to know.
were up in Mackinac City. Some say drunk. I don't know. I wasn't there, but they were bragging on it, and they were told about it. And I was told it was 80,000. It's 81,000. It doesn't
So
matter.
this is hearsay.
Still, the purpose is to get them out of the race. That person was running for the chairman of the state party, and they backed off so that Ron.
Let me
could
speak
have it.
on
Why
this.
did he want it?
Yeah.
I think he's referring to a report that was issued, an investigation into the matter. I think he's referring to Scott Hagerstrom and how he got out of the state party chair race, I believe in 2017. But again, he can't get basic facts right. He can't, he doesn't do the most rudimentary of research beforehand before he spouts off. And, like I said before, it's, the idea of a money power dangling cash above the party. I can see how that would not be liked by people in the grassroots, obviously. But when you're getting these sort of facts wrong, when you do no research, when you spout off on both sides of your mouth, as CJ does, that does not look that does not speak well for the credibility of this individual.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's let him run his mouth some more.
We don't know. We have no idea.
Okay.
So
Well, let me update the people who just tuning in. Good morning, everybody. See Sister Bethany. We got who that Mo's call. We got somebody tuning in from.
All right. I just checked my notes, and the thing I want to show is at the bottom of them, which means it's probably late in the video. And I don't know if I want to show the entire rest of the thing. But we saw earlier he mentioned writing a strategic and tactical plan for Laura Cox. Later on in the show, he actually says he himself was going to run for state chair, but that he decided to help Laura Cox instead. Now that's Paul speak for. I was supporting Laura Cox. I was perhaps even working for Laura Cox. It's funny how all the things that he's saying end up working to the benefit of people like Fred Upton and Laura Cox, isn't it? Like the worst rhinos we have.
Very useful. I think he's very useful in that regard. That people who are wannabes and have nothing to offer in terms of substance, bad actors in the establishment will use them to cause disruption, so that to drive a wedge through the grassroots and stop us from being a cohesive force during a time in which we have numbers like we've never had before. But what are we doing? We're making ourselves look like clowns. We are at each other's throats over oftentimes nonsense, and it's guys like this who are driving that. It's very shameful.
I also wrote down at one point he whines about McBroom telling people outside of the hearing to be quiet because they were so loud outside. Like that's a big deal at all. Apparently, he also claims in the interview that Dana Nessel helped McBroom out of a bankruptcy, which sounds too far-fetched for me to believe. Says there's not one Republican he would vote for. Says Steve Carra is not a conservative because Carra didn't promise to support the House rules when he hadn't gotten them yet. Claims people are surveilling him. Doesn't say who. Yeah. So anyway, I don't want to drag us through any more of this if we don't have to, but I'll make some general point here. I got an email the other day, and this is partly why I wanted to talk about this on the show. This is from, I'm not going to say her name, but and it's because the name's not important anyway. But she asks, what are we going to do about the Michigan Republican Party? I know we've got some good people in there this time around, but I feel like the big money guys are just manipulating them and laughing at them. Like, why didn't our party ever sanction the Republican legislators who voted for the impeachment? Where were Michon and Marion on that? Now, I recall there was actually a state party resolution to censure or call for McBroom and Tice and what was the other one? Bison over the Oversight Committee report. And that was a tough fight at the state party, right? You were there, weren't you?
Yeah, I was involved in that fight in the Issues Committee, and there was a handful of us who pushed it, and ultimately, we were struck down by the majority in the committee. It never got to the state committee floor. Yeah. There are, even though we have more patriots involved in the state committee than ever before, and elected to the state committee, we still don't have a majority, but in the very near future we could. So that's what we should be focusing on.
Yeah.
Not, trying to, backstabbing everyone over speculation and nonsense.
Yeah, I mean, well, there's a couple of things to unpack here. First of all, yeah, there still are some state committee members that are voting with the establishment, but there's another point too that I think is important to make. There is a notion of playing your position when you're in politics. And if you're a grassroots person, if you're someone like me and you're lobbying on issues, you do whatever you take to get to your goal, and that means beating up on rhinos, then you beat up on rhinos, and we have and we will. When you're a chair of say a county GOP, ordinarily that usually means you want to the smallest extent possible, you don't want to disparage Republicans. You're a party officer, and that's your job. If you don't like it, you don't have to have it. I mean, one of the things that I made the point about extensively in 2016 is what an obscenity, what a travesty it was when so many Republicans refused to endorse Donald Trump for president, and the media carried on like this was normal. Like Governor Snyder refused to endorse Donald Trump. Speaker of the House Paul Ryan refused to endorse Donald Trump. And there's a presumption when you're in leadership, especially Speaker of the House or Governor of a state, that part of that job description is you don't attack the top of the ticket because you're also attacking the entire ticket. When Rick Snyder refused to endorse Donald Trump and Paul Ryan refused to endorse Donald Trump, it was an absolutely disgusting slap to the Republican voters. It was demoralizing to them. It divided the party, and it probably cost us down ballot races all over the country. And the hypocrisy there is that when the rhinos get their picks, they always tell us we have to unify now. Yeah, we had the primary contest. Now it's time to unify. And it's a two-way street, because what happened when Donald Trump got into office or got the nomination? What happens when John Riley gets the nomination? Does his opponent show up to the unity breakfast? No. Did Gary Glenn's opponent show up to the unity breakfast? No. But two wrongs don't make a right. And if we're gonna take them to task for being hypocrites by not endorsing our people, we have to understand that Marion Sheridan and Roseanne Ponkowski, or no, Roseanne's in the vice chair level in Oakland County, but Diane Schindelbeck, their job description is to enhance the GOP. It's not normally to attack Republican lawmakers. That's the grassroots' job, and that's fine. That's issue advocacy groups' jobs. That's our job. You could argue that the conduct of like Peter Meyer and Fred Upton calling to burn the Constitution and remove Donald Trump from office was so egregious that it merited him being removed. But why would you ask the outreach vice chair of the state party to be the person to make that fight? That's not her fight to make. That's our fight to make. That's the fight for the people in Fred Upton's district and Peter Meyer's district to go out and knock on doors and recruit primary challengers and support primary challengers. Cause as much pain for them as possible. Ron Weiser, I mean, look, I don't like the fact that Ron Weiser has given an absolute truckload of money to the University of Michigan. but it's his money. It's not my money. He's also given a ton of money to the GOP. And some of that money's gone to rhinos, I'm sure. Some of that money's gone to lazy consultants, I'm sure. That's the normal state. The Republican Party is almost by definition a welfare office for lazy consultants. That's the way it's always been. And if it improves even in the slightest, it's better than it was before. It was no different under Laura Cox. And the only difference under Laura Cox was she couldn't raise any money and spent it all and left us with a $400,000 debt. So I'm not gonna be mad at people for not doing something that's not their job to do.
Yeah, and I'd like to comment that, it's a bizarre, ugly, incestuous system, and the confusion of it all is generally used by our enemies to keep us at each other's throats.
Yeah.
And it's been done so effectively, since the last year's election and the terrible fallout of that, and then January 6th hit, and that made things worse. So, but we can't play into it. We have to, make a effort to reach out to new people, bring them in as precinct delegates, make the Republican Party, the new America First Republican Party, where Trump is pretty much the obvious figurehead. He's the new Reagan figure of the Republican Party these days. In my opinion, is a much better figure to build around than Reagan ever was. So, we need to build on that. We need to make this a party where people will want to come in, they'll want to lead, they'll want to get involved, they'll want to take on more responsibility. We need to build, community, a team. We need to build camaraderie. We don't need this sort of nonsense where we're going after some of the best people that we have, some of the people who are directly involved in getting President Trump elected, throwing them under the bus, throwing Steve Carra under the bus when he's fighting for a forensic audit, when he is introducing a bill for a forensic audit, when he's working to perfect the language of the bill relentlessly, and taking time away from campaigning because he is working so hard on this bill and so diligently and so dedicated to the cause. And you throw him under the bus, it's reprehensible. And that's why CJ needs to be called out, and anyone who is in his cadre also needs to be called out.
CJ is now claiming that Steve Carra assaulted him, which on its face is just absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, and quite frankly, if you're someone who believes that, based on social media posts with no video verification, with no authenticity, no proof, then you're someone who doesn't deserve to be taken seriously, and that's putting it mild.
Well, I would also say too, though, about the GOP. The first time I ever got involved in the Republican Party was because I was supporting Ron Paul running for president, and what we discovered was that the state party was manipulating the rules to influence the outcome of the primary election, and specifically for Mitt Romney's benefit, because he had so many family ties here. His dad was a former governor, and so on and so forth. And the party was engineering the process for Romney's benefit. And that's the reason why we immediately started trying to get so many people involved as precinct delegates, was because we didn't want people out there manipulating the rules. We didn't want the system to be fraudulent. And if you want to get involved in the party, that's probably the biggest reason is to ensure that we elect people who are going to make sure the process is fair. And that's something that Marion and Michonne and everybody else is going to do, because that's who they are. That is their honor, is not to manipulate the rules the way the rules were manipulated against us for so many years. And the people who have been involved for a long time, since the Tea Party movement, the Ron Paul campaigns, back in those days when the party was run by total shysters, like, this guy mentioned Solanuzas. He was the state chair back then. And they were all doing these kind of things, and totally intentionally. But apart from that, apart from ensuring we have a fair process and ensuring that we pick the right nominees for Attorney General, Secretary of State, and so on, which is what the precinct delegates do indirectly by electing the state delegates. Other than that, don't get involved in the party. There's every other way to be active in politics that doesn't involve the party, and they're all better. Get involved with the campaign you really believe in. Get involved with the cause you really believe in. The GOP, in general, is a relatively small aspect of politics, and it is tedious to deal with. I don't like dealing with. We got problems in our own county GOP, which I don't have to care about much because I can just put my attention elsewhere, doing statewide stuff and stuff in other counties. If you got a problem with your county GOP, fine, support a candidate, support some project that's worth doing.
And I want to make a point on what we've seen since the days, those of us who've actually been around and have experience in the party. It didn't just show up, Johnny come lately and are trying to throw our weight around as if we know everything, every nuance of politics. Those of us have been around, Adam's been around the party since the late 2000s. I've been around since 2012. Yeah, these people like Saul and Nusis were in power. They were, pretty much dominated the entire party from top to bottom.
Yeah.
And now look what we have. We have Michon, the leader of the Michigan Trump Republicans, or former leader of the Michigan Trump Republicans, as co-chair. We have, MCC co-founder Marion Sheridan at, as the grassroots vice chair.
Yeah.
Diane Schindelbeck, another MCC member, as administrative vice chair.
Mm-hmm.
Tammy Carlone is the coalition's vice chair. Yeah. We have people who have come up through the grassroots, ascending to these leadership roles.
Right.
We have other people who came in, through the Ron Paul movement. Me, David Dudenhofer, as district chairs. You have others who are pro-Trump. Many people who came in as a part of the pro-Trump movement as district chairs and as county chairs. Look at the Hillsdale County GOP, super hardcore, doing great things. This is happening all throughout the state.
Yeah.
Right now, our numbers in the grassroots are more than ever. We've got, during the Tea Party era, we probably peaked at having, maybe 40 to 50% of the delegates. But now I would say we have 70 to 80% of the delegates. So all we have to do is organize. All we have to do is focus on building rather than destroying. And then we will have an immediate success. But who is sabotaging us? Who is who is doing what they can to make that untenable?
Haters.
People like CJ and his cadre of fools. And it's gotten to the point of where it needs to be called out and rooted out within the Republican Party. And within the
one other point I'd make too, and then we should probably call it a wrap because we've been going almost 90 minutes again. But there's also this Secure My Vote citizen-initiated law project, and I know that the people in the party were working very diligently to thread that needle between getting something that the legislature would pass, raising the funds to make it possible, and also working with outside groups to get real election reforms. And again, I think there could be other elements of it in there, but that's a whole lot to ask for developing and funding a proposal that will, and voter ID for absentee ballots is no small thing. Banning the Zuckerbucks is no small thing, and they were able to do that. Ron Weiser made that possible, as opposed to when Laura Cox was chair and did absolutely nothing except sabotage the party at every turn and lead to Donald Trump ultimately losing in Michigan because the party had no idea what it was doing. They didn't have the resources. They weren't prepared, and they got wiped out. And in her bitterness, she decided to burn down the house. And that's just embarrassing. That's just embarrassing. It's inexcusable. So I don't know. Yeah, I think we should call it a stream, guys. If you folks in the chat, it was an unannounced show. It's already after midnight, so I understand if there's no one here. But if you guys have any questions for us, we're happy to answer them. In the meantime,
I just want to give a final message. In the meantime, if you're in the grassroots, being desperate is no excuse to follow people who have no credibility and no one should ever take seriously and spread obvious rumors and falsehoods. If you have no discernment at this point because you've lost your bearings, because you're desperate, because of the situation in the country, then I don't know what to say to you other than you're not helping. You are sowing the seeds of our national and civilizational downfall, and you need to snap out of it and try to think logically, try to follow the facts, try to do things at the local level to actually fight against corruption. But if you're just someone who is just whining on social media, attacking people who are our champions in the grassroots, then it's I think you've just kind of thrown in the towel, you've given up, and now you're just throwing a tantrum, resigned to watch the country go downhill, and that's just that's not what a patriot does, quite frankly.
Yeah, I think it's tough for people, especially for newer people who have every reason to be mad at everything going on. And as I said, the party it's an easy target because the party has never been a very effective vehicle, and they always have problems. And politics is always people in politics always have emotions running high. We see our country being destroyed, and it's real easy to get very frustrated. And people have to have patience. They have to have my attitude has always been, because as I said, there's always conflicts in politics, is just go someplace else, do something else, get away from people you don't like, and try not to make as much of a try not to make problems any worse than they already are. Try to be constructive, try to be positive. I was giving a talk the other day, and I made the point that the left is the incarnation of destruction. Everything they want to destroy everything. They are destroyers. They're destroyers of life, destroyers of liberty, destroyers of families, destroyers of history, destroyers of countries. That's who they are, and that's who we really need to try to avoid being. And sometimes you have to be negative. I understand. We've gone after some people over a lot of legislative topics, for sure. Sometimes that's essential, but you should never do it any more than you have to.
Yeah, another thing is, we've done everything we can to promote truth here in Rescue Michigan.
We'll get grief for this. I know.
We did our episode on Stand Up Michigan, where we talked about some failures in their leadership, and now we're talking about this. Yeah. And it may step on some toes, but it is a message that needs to be heard. It's a message that needs to be heard. We cannot afford to make these mistakes right now in these crucial times, and we don't know how much time we have left. We don't know what's coming down the pike, so we cannot afford to make these mistakes right now. We need to snap out of it, and we need to do the tactics, local, grassroots, building our organizations, rebuilding our communities, positive message, bringing in independents, people in the middle, convincing them. A lot of people just know something is going wrong right now, but they're not dialed into the information that we're dialed in. We have to reach those people, and spouting conspiracy nonsense and sounding like complete fools is not the way to do it.
Yeah. Well, hey, quick, some folks in the comments. Amber, thanks for the kind words. John, have a good night as well to you too, sir. Jeremy, Jeremy just asked a question earlier and then said we had answered it. So, hey, thanks everybody for tuning in. I hope this was informative. As Shane just said, I know it's going to ruffle some feathers, but I think, people are asking us what's our take on the state of the party, and I hope this has answered those questions. So, as always, thanks again for all you guys do for liberty. Hope you have a great rest of your weekend. Hope to see you in Lansing on Tuesday. Get there early if you can, just in case we get a hearing coming out of the Regulatory Reform Committee at 10:30. But definitely be there in time for the hearing in the Military Affairs Committee at noon on the third floor of the House Office Building for Lucas Gerhardt. In fact, we should on a positive note here. So I did want to put this up on the screen because I actually neglected to mention this in the email that we sent out today. So let me put this up on the screen right now. This is the Legal Defense Fund for Lucas Gerhardt. This is you can see he's raised $86,000 in support from a lot of very kind people from around the country. And it's not enough. He has spent, his family has spent more than this. In fact, I remember going to his house a few months ago and they couldn't afford a new stove. Their stove broke down, and his father said, look, I have to buy a new stove every month just in tether fees. They have now a case before the Michigan State Supreme Court pending, and if that doesn't go through, they may even file federal suit. If not, they have a trial coming up, which is extremely expensive and risky. I think he's got an ironclad case. Personally, I don't think there's any way in a million years a Chippewa County jury is going to convict this man. But his life has been absolutely devastated since this incident occurred. He's not been able to go to school, not been able to go to work. He's lost 2 full years of his life. So if you can afford it, please make a contribution to Lucas Gerhard. You can see the link at the top of the screen there, gofundme.com/ and then all lowercase f/2B485 -justice -FOR Lucas. If you can support him, please do. And please support him too, just by showing up and in support on Tuesday. You can turn in a card just saying you support the bill and just have a presence there. So, all right. Thanks again, guys. Thanks for all you do for liberty. Until next time.